Hello, we'll do the poem I Remember by the poet Thomas Hood. So, here in the poem, the poet is nostalgic or he wishes that he were as happy as he was when he was a child. Now he's a grown up man and he would like to relive his childhood. So the poet says, I remember the house where I was born, the little window where the sun came peeping in at morn. So the poet remembers the house where he was born and he remembers the room from the window of which the sun came through in the morning. He never came a wink too soon, nor brought too long a day, but now I often wish the night had borne my breath away. So when the poet was a boy, the dawn never came too early and the day was not too long because the poet used to enjoy himself every moment as a when he was a boy. The day was not too long, the day was not too prolonged by too many worries. But now, as a man, as an adult, he often wishes that his breath had left uh, in the night. It had been carried away in the night. And now his life is probably full of so many worries and cares and anxieties. And he doesn't know the way out. So he remembers his childhood with nostalgia. And in the second stanza, the poet says, I remember the roses red and white, the violets and the lily cups, those flowers made of light. So, in the garden of the poet's house, when he was there as a boy, there were roses which were red roses and white roses, and there were violets and there were lilies, and those flowers made his day even brighter. The flowers themselves seemed to be made of light, and he was happy, and these flowers reflected his happiness. The lilacs were the robin bird, and where my brother said, the laburnum on his birthday, the tree is living yet. So the poet also remembers the lilacs. Lilacs are purple flowers where the robin bird, the robin redbreast, built its nest, and where in the garden the poet's brother had set a laburnum tree on his birthday, and that tree has grown and is still living. The poet says in the third stanza, I remember when I used to swing and thought the air must rush as fresh to swallows on the wing. So the poet says that as a boy, he used to swing on, the playground swing. There was a swing in his garden, and he thought the air must still be as fresh as it is in the higher reaches of the atmosphere to swallow birds which are flying in the sky. So the air itself was so fresh as a boy. And he says, my spirit flew in feathers then that is so heavy now, and summer tools could hardly cool the fever on my brow. So and when he was a boy, he was so happy. His spirit used to fly as though he had feathers and he could fly like a bird. But now his spirit is heavy, it is laden with burdens, and even if he were to take a bath in a summer pool, the fever in his mind, the perspiration on his brow, on his forehead, could not be cooled. I remember the fir trees dark and high. I used to think their slender tops were close against the sky. The poet says he remembers that there were fir trees. Fir trees are like Christmas trees, only much taller. And those fir trees were dark and high in the night. And the poet used to think the conical tops, the slender tops, almost touched the sky. It was a childish ignorance. But now it is little joy to know I am further off from heaven than when I was a boy. So, and when the poet thought as a boy that the tops of the fir trees touched the sky, it was childish ignorance. But now he thinks it gives him little joy to know that he is farther off from heaven than when he was a boy. So, as a boy, he had an heavenly state of existence. He was happy, he was full of joy, he could leap, he could jump, he could play, and he was happy. But now, that heavenly state of existence, when he's an adult, is farther and farther off from his life, and he can never relive the moments of his childhood, and he's farther off from heaven than when he was a boy. So, this poem describes the feeling of growing up to be an adult. Thank you.